Marcus Johnson slammed his fist on the courtroom table so hard the water pitcher rattled. "She's lying," he screamed at the judge. "She's a broke immigrant. She worked as a waitress when I found her." His attorney grabbed his arm, but Marcus shook him off, pointing at his wife across the aisle. "That woman doesn't have a dime to her name." The heavy oak doors behind him creaked open. Every head in the courtroom turned. Marcus's face went pale. Walking toward him was the one man in Georgia who could buy and sell him 1,000 times over, and he was looking at Marcus like a man about to crush an insect. "Comment what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels." The mahogany table shook when Marcus Johnson's fist connected with its surface. Judge Patricia Weathers looked up from her papers, her reading glasses sliding down her nose. "Mr. Johnson, you will control yourself in my courtroom," she warned. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was staring at his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, with a fury that made the court reporter stop typing. "This is a joke," Marcus spat. "Your Honor, look at her. Look at what she's wearing. Does that look like a woman who deserves half of my company?" Elena sat perfectly still at the defendant's table. She wore a simple gray cardigan that had a small hole near the sleeve. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup. No jewelry except for the thin wedding band she still wore. She looked exactly like what Marcus had always told everyone. She was a poor immigrant girl he had rescued from poverty. Her attorney, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, placed a calming hand on her arm. He said nothing. "Your Honor." Marcus's lawyer, Robert Hayes, stood up quickly. "I apologize for my client's outburst. The stress of these proceedings—" "Save it, Robert!" Marcus cut him off. He straightened his tie, a silk Hermes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "I have every right to be upset. This woman contributed nothing to our marriage, nothing to my business, and now she wants to take half of everything I built with my own 2 hands." He laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that echoed off the walls. "I started with nothing. Nothing. Grew up in the projects in Detroit. Worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. And when I moved to Atlanta with $50 in my pocket, did anyone help me? Did anyone hand me anything?" Marcus walked toward the center of the courtroom, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the polished floor. "No. I built Johnson Property Group from the ground up. Every deal, every contract, every building with my name on it, I earned that. Me, Marcus Anthony Johnson." He turned and pointed at Elena. "And what did she do? She cooked dinner, she folded laundry, she sat in our penthouse, the penthouse I paid for, and watched television all day." Elena's hands trembled slightly in her lap, but her face remained calm. "That's enough, Mr. Johnson," Judge Weathers said firmly. "Sit down. Mr. Hayes, control your client, or I will hold him in contempt." Marcus smoothed his jacket and returned to his seat, but not before shooting Elena a look of pure contempt. Robert Hayes cleared his throat. "Your Honor, my client is simply passionate about protecting what he has rightfully earned. We have submitted documentation showing that Mrs. Johnson, excuse me, Mrs. Hart, as she apparently prefers, made 0 financial contributions to the founding or operation of Johnson Property Group." He picked up a folder from the table. "Mrs. Hart was a waitress at a diner when my client met her 8 years ago. She had no savings, no assets, no college degree. My client, out of the goodness of his heart, married her and gave her a life most women only dream about." Elena's attorney still said nothing. He was reading something on his phone, seemingly uninterested in the proceedings. "Furthermore," Hayes continued, "my client has generously offered a settlement of $5,000. This is far more than Mrs. Hart would be entitled to under Georgia law, given her lack of contribution to the marital assets." $5,000. Judge Weathers raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Hayes, your client's company is valued at approximately $60 million. $62 million, actually," Marcus said with pride. "As of last quarter. And you're offering your wife of 8 years $5,000? Marcus leaned forward. "Your Honor, with all due respect, Elena knew what she was getting into when she married me. We had an understanding. I provided for her. I gave her a beautiful home, nice clothes, anything she wanted. In exchange, she was supposed to support me. Be a good wife." He shook his head. "Instead, she embarrassed me. Do you know what it's like to bring your wife to business events and have her stumble over her English to watch her talk to investors about her village in, where was it, Elena? Some tiny town in Ukraine that nobody's ever heard of?" Elena spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but steady. "It was Russia, and it wasn't that small. See?" Marcus threw up his hands. "She can't even keep her story straight. Your Honor, I'm not trying to be cruel here. I'm trying to be fair. $5,000 is enough for her to start over, find a new apartment, maybe go back to wherever she came from." He paused, and his next words dripped with false sympathy. "I just want what's best for both of us. This marriage was a mistake. I've moved on. I think it's time she did too." The courtroom fell silent. Marcus sat back in his chair satisfied. This was going exactly as planned. Robert Hayes had assured him it would be quick. Elena had no money for a proper lawyer, or so they thought. The fact that she had managed to hire someone was surprising, but the old man hadn't said a word all morning. Probably some discount attorney she found online. "Mr. Krasnov." Judge Weathers turned to Elena's attorney. "Do you have anything to say in response?" Viktor Krasnov slowly closed the folder he had been reading. He removed his glasses, cleaned them with a silk handkerchief, and placed them back on his nose. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, so quiet that everyone had to lean in to hear him. $5,000, he said almost to himself. "Mr. Johnson, you truly believe your wife is worth $5,000? Marcus shifted in his seat. Something about the old man's tone made him uncomfortable. "That's my offer. Take it or leave it." "I see." Krasnov stood up slowly. He was tall, with the kind of posture that suggested military training. His suit, Marcus noticed now, wasn't discount. It was Brioni. Custom, the kind that cost more than a car. "And you stated under oath that you built Johnson Property Group entirely on your own. No outside investment, no partners, just $50 and determination. Is that correct?" Marcus's lawyer put a hand on his arm, but Marcus brushed it off. "That's right. Every penny came from my own hard work." "Interesting." Krasnov reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick leather binder. "Because I have documents here that tell a very different story." For the first time, Marcus felt a flicker of unease. "What documents?" "There are no documents. Everything about my company is a matter of public record." "Not everything, Mr. Johnson." Krasnov opened the binder. "Tell me, do you remember a company called Blue Horizon Capital?" Marcus's face twitched. "That was an early investor, small stake. They cashed out years ago." "Did they?" "Because according to these records, Blue Horizon Capital provided $2.5 million in seed funding to Johnson Property Group in 2016. That investment was never cashed out. It was converted into equity, silent partner equity." Robert Hayes jumped to his feet. "Objection. This is completely new evidence. We haven't had time to review." "Sit down, Mr. Hayes," Judge Weathers said, her eyes fixed on the binder in Krasnov's hands. "Continue, Mr. Krasnov." Marcus's heart was pounding now. "So, what I had investors. Lots of businesses have investors. That doesn't mean, do you know who owns Blue Horizon Capital, Mr. Johnson?" Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't know. He had never bothered to find out. The money had appeared when he needed it most, and he hadn't asked questions. "I'll tell you." Krasnov walked toward the center of the courtroom. Blue Horizon Capital is a subsidiary of Volkov Holdings International, and Volkov Holdings International is owned by the Volkov family. He paused, letting the name hang in the air. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Volkov. Even he knew that name. Everyone in Atlanta knew that name. Dmitry Volkov owned half the luxury real estate on the East Coast. He owned hotels, shopping centers, and NBA team. "I don't..." Marcus's voice cracked. "What does that have to do with..." The heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom swung open. Every head turned. Standing in the doorway was a man Marcus had only ever seen in magazines and on the news. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a black overcoat that probably cost more than Marcus's car. Dmitry Volkov. Behind him stood two men who were clearly security. The kind of men who didn't need to carry visible weapons because their presence alone was threat enough. Marcus felt his legs go weak. Dmitry walked down the center aisle slowly, his footsteps deliberate and measured. He didn't look at Marcus. His eyes were fixed on Elena. When he reached the front of the courtroom, he stopped. "Papa." Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Dmitry reached out and touched his daughter's cheek gently. It was such a tender gesture, so full of love and pain, that several people in the gallery looked away. "My Lenochka," he said softly, using the Russian diminutive. "I am here now." He turned to face Marcus. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "So," Dmitry said, his voice carrying effortlessly despite its quiet tone, "you are the man who told my daughter she is worth $5,000. Marcus tried to speak, but no words came out. "The man who threw her clothes on the lawn of the penthouse she paid for. The man who called her a burden, a worthless immigrant." Dmitry took a step closer. "The man who brought his mistress to family dinners while my daughter sat humiliated. The man who told her she was lucky he ever looked at her." He stopped directly in front of Marcus's table. "Tell me, Mr. Johnson, do you still feel lucky?" Robert Hayes finally found his voice. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We need to—" "Mr. Hayes," Judge Weathers interrupted, "I suggest you sit down and let these proceedings continue. I have a feeling we're about to learn something very important about the origins of your client's fortune." Dmitry turned to the judge and inclined his head respectfully. "Your Honor, with your permission, I would like to testify on behalf of my daughter." "Your daughter," Marcus croaked. "Elena is your daughter." Elena finally looked at him. For the first time, Marcus saw something other than fear or sadness in her eyes. He saw pity. "My name is Elena Volkov Marcus. I never lied to you about that. You just never bothered to ask about my family. You never asked about my childhood. You never asked about anything except how I could make your life easier." Her voice grew stronger. "For 8 years I listened to you tell everyone that you saved me, that I was nothing before you, that I should be grateful." She stood up. "But here's the truth, Marcus. When we met, you were 3 months away from bankruptcy. Your company was failing. You had creditors calling every day. You were about to lose everything." Marcus shook his head frantically. "That's not. I asked my father to save you. I begged him, because I loved you, because I believed in you, and he did. He invested $2.5 million through Blue Horizon Capital, so you would never know it came from my family." She walked around the table, moving closer to him. "I wanted you to have your pride, Marcus. I wanted you to feel like a self-made man. So I stayed quiet. I pretended I was just a poor immigrant girl who was grateful for every crumb you threw her." Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice didn't waver. "And how did you repay me? By parading your mistress through our home. By telling me I was worthless. By throwing my belongings on the street and giving me 48 hours to disappear." She stopped directly in front of him. "You want to know the truth. Every building you own, every contract you signed, every dollar in your bank account, it all traces back to the Volkov family trust. Legally, Marcus, you don't own a company. You work for me." Marcus's world was crumbling. This can't be real. You're lying. You have to be lying." Dmitry's voice cut through like a blade. "My daughter does not lie, Mr. Johnson. Unlike you." He nodded to Viktor Krasnov. "Show them the documents." Viktor handed the leather binder to the court clerk, who passed it to Judge Weathers. She opened it and began reading. Her eyebrows rose higher with each page. "Mr. Johnson," she said finally, "these documents appear to show that your wife, through her family trust, provided 100% of the seed capital for your company. They also show that according to the silent partner agreement you signed in 2016, Any attempt to defraud or deny the silent partner's equity results in immediate forfeiture of all operating rights. She looked at him over her glasses. You testified under oath not 15 minutes ago that you built this company alone, that your wife contributed nothing. Is that still your testimony? Marcus looked around desperately. His lawyer wouldn't meet his eyes. The court reporter was typing furiously. The gallery was silent, watching his destruction with rapt attention. I didn't know. How could I have known? She never told me. She lied to me about who she was. Did she? Judge Weathers asked. Or did you simply never bother to ask? Marcus turned to Elena. Baby, please. We can work this out. I was stressed. The business, the pressure, it got to me. But we can fix this. I love you. I've always loved you. Elena looked at him for a long moment. No, Marcus. You loved having someone believe in you. You loved the reflection of yourself you saw in my eyes. But you never loved me. She turned away. Papa, I'm ready to go. Dmitri put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. He looked at Marcus one final time. I will not destroy you today, Mr. Johnson. I want you to have time to truly understand what you've lost. My attorneys will be in contact regarding the transfer of all company assets. He paused at the door. Oh, and one more thing. That Rolex you wear everywhere, the one you use to impress people at business meetings. Elena bought it on Canal Street in New York for $200. She knew you couldn't tell the difference between real gold and plated brass. He smiled, a cold, mirthless expression. It seemed appropriate for a man who cannot tell the difference between a woman who loves him and a trophy he can discard. The doors closed behind them. Marcus sat frozen in his chair. His lawyer was already packing his briefcase, muttering about malpractice insurance. The judge was making notes, occasionally glancing at him, with something between contempt and disbelief. Outside, thunder rumbled. The storm that had been threatening all morning was finally breaking. Robert Hayes leaned close to Marcus's ear. We need to talk about damage control. If those documents are legitimate. Get away from me, Marcus said, his voice hollow. Marcus, listen to me. If you committed perjury, we're looking at serious consequences. Federal charges possibly. We need to... I said get away from me. Marcus stood up so violently that his chair crashed backward. He stormed toward the door, ignoring the judge calling for order. He burst into the hallway, his heart pounding, his mind racing. This couldn't be happening. Not to him. He was Marcus Johnson. He was somebody. He had a penthouse and a Mercedes and a company worth $60 million. Except none of it was his. None of it had ever been his. His phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine, the woman who was supposed to be his new life. His upgrade from the boring immigrant wife who held him back. Hey babe, saw some stuff on the news about your company. Is everything okay? Also, my rent is due next week. Just reminding you, LOL. Already she knew. Already everyone would know. Marcus stumbled down the courthouse steps, the rain beginning to fall in heavy sheets. He fumbled for his car keys before remembering the Mercedes was leased through the company. The company that wasn't his anymore. At the curb, a sleek black Bentley was pulling away. Through the tinted rear window, he could just make out Elena's profile. She didn't look back. The rain pounded down on Marcus Johnson, self-made man-master of his own destiny, as he stood on the courthouse steps with a fake Rolex and nothing left to his name except the lies he had told and the woman he had thrown away. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled like judgment. The rain had soaked through Marcus's suit by the time he made it to the bus stop 3 blocks from the courthouse. His Italian leather shoes squelched with every step, and his silk tie clung to his chest like a wet rag. He stood under the small shelter watching the water stream off the edges and tried to process what had just happened. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Jasmine. Marcus. Hello? You're scaring me. What's going on? Someone just sent me a video from the courthouse. He didn't respond. A city bus pulled up its brakes squealing. The doors hissed open, and the driver, a heavy-set woman with tired eyes, looked at him expectantly. You getting on or what? Marcus stared at her. When was the last time he had been on a bus, college before that, I don't have... He patted his pockets. His wallet was still there, but every card in it was tied to accounts that were probably already frozen. Do you take cash? The driver sighed. $2. He found a crumpled 5 in his pocket, emergency cash he kept out of habit. He climbed aboard, dropped the bill in the fare box, and didn't wait for change. He made his way to the back of the bus and collapsed into a seat. The other passengers stared at him, a soaking wet black man, in what was clearly an expensive suit, looking like he had just lost everything, which he had. His phone rang. Robert Hayes. Marcus answered. What? Marcus, where are you? We need to talk. The judge has scheduled a follow-up hearing for Monday, if those Volkov documents are authentic. Did you see who walked into that courtroom, Robert? That was Dmitry Volkov. The Dmitry Volkov. You think he showed up with fake documents? Silence on the other end. Robert. Marcus, I have to be honest with you. I'm not sure I can continue to represent you. Marcus laughed, a hollow, desperate sound that made the woman sitting across from him clutch her purse tighter. You're dropping me. Now, after everything I've paid you. It's not about the money. If you committed perjury, and based on what I saw today, you absolutely did, I could lose my license for continuing to represent you. I'm sorry. I'll have my office send over your files. The line went dead. Marcus lowered the phone slowly. The bus lurched forward, carrying him away from the courthouse, away from the life he thought he had. He needed to think. He needed a plan. The penthouse. He still had 48 hours, didn't he? The judge had said 48 hours to vacate. That was enough time to grab some things. The Rolex was fake, fine, whatever, but there was cash in the safe. Real cash. And some of Elena's jewelry that she had left behind. No. Not Elena's. The Volkov family's. Everything was theirs. Everything had always been theirs. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a number he didn't recognize. He answered anyway. What, Mr. Johnson? A crisp female voice. This is Margaret Chen from First National Bank. I'm calling to inform you that all accounts associated with Johnson Property Group have been placed under a temporary freeze pending a legal review. Additionally, your personal accounts have been flagged for potential fraudulent activity. Fraudulent activity. Those are my accounts. Sir, I understand this is upsetting. However, we received a court order 30 minutes ago requiring us to... Marcus ended the call. 30 minutes. They had moved in 30 minutes. While he was still standing on the courthouse steps getting rained on, the Volkovs had already started dismantling his life. The bus stopped and more passengers got on. A young mother with 2 small children sat in the row ahead of him. One of the kids, a little girl with pigtails, turned around and stared at him. Mommy, why is that man all wet? Don't stare, honey. It's not polite. But the girl kept looking. He looks sad. The mother pulled her daughter around to face forward. I said don't stare. Marcus closed his eyes and leaned his head against the window. Sad. That was one word for it. The bus reached his stop 45 minutes later. Normally it was a 15-minute drive from the courthouse to his building. But Marcus didn't have a car anymore. Or rather, he had a car, but it belonged to a company he no longer owned. He walked the last 2 blocks to the penthouse, his wet shoes rubbing blisters on his heels. The doorman, Jerome, who had always greeted Marcus with a warm smile and an enthusiastic, "Good afternoon, Mr. Johnson," stood at attention as he approached. Mr. Johnson. Jerome's voice was flat. No smile. I was told to give you this. He handed Marcus an envelope. Marcus tore it open. Inside was a formal notice from building management. Mr. Johnson, we have been informed that the penthouse unit is legally owned by the Kensington Trust. As you are not a named resident on the trust documentation, we must ask you to vacate the premises within 24 hours. 24 hours, not 48. The Volkovs had already contacted the building. Jerome, Marcus said, forcing a smile. There's been some kind of misunderstanding. I've lived here for 5 years. I know, Mr. Johnson. Jerome wouldn't meet his eyes. I'm sorry. Management's orders. Marcus wanted to argue. He wanted to scream that this was his home, that he had thrown parties here, that he had stood on the balcony and looked out at the Atlanta skyline and felt like a king. But the fight had drained out of him. He took the elevator up to the penthouse. The doors opened onto the marble foyer, and he stepped into the home that had defined his success for half a decade. It was quiet. So quiet. Elena's presence had never been loud. She wasn't a woman who filled spaces with noise or clutter, but he realized now that she had filled this place with something else. Life. Warmth. The smell of her cooking. The sound of her humming while she worked in the kitchen. He had never noticed until it was gone. Marcus walked to the safe in his study. His fingers trembled as he entered the combination. The door swung open. Empty. A single piece of paper sat where stacks of cash should have been. He picked it up. The contents of this safe have been cataloged and removed as part of the asset recovery process. All items were legally owned by the Kensington Trust. A full inventory will be provided to your attorney within 72 hours. They had been here. While he was at the courthouse, someone had come into his home, and taken everything. His phone rang. Unknown number again. "What now?" he shouted into the phone. "Marcus, baby. Why are you yelling at me?" "Jasmine." He took a breath. Sorry, baby. It's been a bad day." "I can tell. I saw the video. It's everywhere, Marcus. Someone recorded the whole thing in the courtroom. Your wife's dad. He's like really rich. Like billionaire rich." Marcus sank onto the couch, the Italian leather couch that probably cost more than most cars and was no longer his. "Yes, apparently." "And you didn't know—" Jasmine's voice had an edge to it now. "You were married to her for 8 years, and you didn't know her dad was a billionaire. She told me she was an orphan, that she had no family. She lied to me, Jasmine." Silence. "Jasmine." "Marcus, I don't think she lied. I looked her up. Elena Volkov. There are articles about her from like 10 years ago. Society pages and stuff. She was photographed at charity events with her parents. Her dad gave her a yacht for her 18th birthday." Marcus felt sick. "She walked away from all that," Jasmine continued. "Gave it all up, and married you. There's this whole story about how the Volkov heiress disappeared and nobody knew where she went." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying she had everything, and she left it behind to be with you. And then you—" Jasmine trailed off. "I what?" "You know what you did, Marcus. You treated her like garbage. You brought me to your anniversary dinner, remember? Made her sit there and watch us flirt all night. I thought I was moving up. I thought she was holding me back. Holding you back." Jasmine's laugh was sharp. "She was literally funding your entire company. She was the reason you had anything at all." "How is this my fault? She should have told me if I had known—" "If you had known what you would have treated her better because her dad was rich. That's exactly why she didn't tell you, Marcus. She wanted to be loved for who she was, not for her money." The truth of Jasmine's words hit him like a punch to the gut. "Baby, listen," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is all temporary. I'm going to fix this. I'll hire new lawyers. I'll fight this. The Volkovs can't just take everything. Actually, I think they can. I had my friend who's in law school read the articles about it. She said something about a silent partner agreement and how you committed perjury by lying about where the money came from." Marcus squeezed his eyes shut. "Anyway," Jasmine continued, "I'm calling because I need to know about the apartment." "What apartment?" "The apartment you were renting for me in Buckhead. The landlord called today. He said the card on file was declined. He's saying if I don't pay by Friday, he's going to start eviction proceedings." Marcus almost laughed. "Jasmine, I don't have access to my accounts right now. Everything's frozen. I can't—" "Can't what?" "Pay my rent, Marcus. You said you would take care of me. You said once the divorce was final, we would—" "I know what I said." He was shouting again. "Things have changed. Okay. I'm dealing with a lot right now." Another silence. This one felt different. "You know what, Marcus, I think I understand now." "Understand what?" Why Elena left you. Why her father came after you so hard. You use people. You used her for her money. You just didn't know that's what you were doing, and you were going to use me until someone better came along. That's not fair. I love you, Jasmine. Do you, or do you just love what I represent? The young, beautiful girlfriend who makes you look successful. He couldn't answer. Goodbye, Marcus. Don't call me again. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the silent penthouse, his wet clothes dripping onto the Italian leather, and stared at the blank screen of his phone. In the span of a few hours, he had lost his wife, his company, his money, his lawyer, and his mistress. He was utterly, completely alone. His phone buzzed one more time, a text from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Johnson. This is Viktor Krasnov, attorney for the Volkov family. We need to discuss the terms of your departure from Johnson Property Group. I suggest you find representation quickly. Things are about to get much worse. Marcus read the message 3 times. Worse? How could things possibly get worse? His phone buzzed again. P.S. Check the news. With trembling fingers, Marcus opened his browser and navigated to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution website. The headline hit him like a physical blow. Atlanta real estate mogul accused of fraud in explosive courtroom revelation. Below the headline was a photo, probably a screenshot from someone's phone, of Marcus standing at the defendant's table, his face contorted with anger, while Dmitry Volkov stood in the background like an avenging angel. The article was detailed, brutally detailed. It included quotes from the courtroom transcript background on the Volkov family empire, and speculation about potential criminal charges. Sources close to the investigation say that Mr. Johnson may face charges of perjury, fraud, and embezzlement. The DA's office has declined to comment, but legal experts suggest that the evidence presented in court today could result in significant prison time. Prison. Marcus hadn't even considered that possibility. He scrolled down to the comments section against his better judgment. Good. Men like this need to learn they can't treat women like property. I hope he goes to jail. My sister was married to a man like this. They never learn until they lose everything. The best part is the fake Rolex. Perfect metaphor for a fake man. LMAO, imagine not knowing your wife is a billionaire's daughter for 8 years. How self-absorbed do you have to be? Marcus closed the browser. He needed to get out of here. He needed time to think, to regroup, to figure out his next move. He couldn't just sit here and wait for the Volkovs to take everything. But where could he go? His parents were both gone. His mother to cancer. His father to a heart attack. He had no siblings. His so-called friends were all business associates who were probably distancing themselves from him right now. There was only one person he could think of. He found the number in his contacts and hit call. It rang 5 times before someone answered. Hello? Deshaun, it's Marcus. A pause. Marcus, man, I saw the news. That's rough, bro. You okay? Deshaun Williams had been Marcus's college roommate. They had been best friends once, back when Marcus was just a kid from Detroit with big dreams and no money. But as Marcus's star rose, he had slowly let the friendship fade. Deshaun was a high school teacher now, good work, but not the kind of success Marcus wanted to be associated with. He hadn't called Deshaun in 3 years. I've been better, Marcus admitted. Listen, I need a favor. A favor, Marcus? We haven't talked in years. You didn't come to my wedding. You didn't come to my daughter's christening. You sent a gift card to her first birthday party. A gift card, Marcus. I know, and I'm sorry. I've been busy. The business your wife's family was funding the whole time? Marcus winced. Deshaun, I need help. I have nowhere to go. They're taking everything. I just need a place to stay for a few days, just until I figure this out. The silence on the other end stretched for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Deshaun sighed. You know what, Marcus, I should say no. I should tell you to deal with your mess yourself the same way you dealt with all your success alone. Deshaun, please. But I'm not going to do that, because unlike you, I remember what it means to be a friend. My couch is open. But Marcus, you need to take a long, hard look at yourself. Because the man I used to know, he wouldn't have done what you did to that woman." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. Actual tears. When was the last time he had cried, "Thank you," he managed. "I'll be there tonight. I'll leave the porch light on." Marcus ended the call and sat for a moment gathering himself. He had to pack. What could he take? His clothes, surely those were his personal effects. The photos maybe, though, most of them included Elena, and he wasn't sure he could look at her face right now. He went to the bedroom and started throwing things into a suitcase: shirts, pants, underwear. He grabbed his college diploma from the wall, the one thing in this penthouse that was purely his, that the Volkovs couldn't claim. As he packed, his hand brushed against something in the closet. A shoebox on the top shelf. He pulled it down and opened it. Inside were things Elena had saved. Birthday cards he had given her in the early years before he stopped bothering. A pressed flower from their first date. A photo from their wedding. Elena radiant, in a simple white dress. Marcus grinning like a man who had just won the lottery. At the bottom of the box was a letter. His handwriting. "Dear Elena, I know things have been hard lately. The business is struggling, and I've been taking my stress out on you. That's not fair. You deserve better. I want you to know that I love you, that I appreciate everything you do for me, that I couldn't have gotten this far without you. You are my partner, my best friend, my everything. I promise to be better. I promise to be the man you deserve. Forever yours, Marcus." He didn't remember writing this letter. When had he written it? 2017? 2018? Back when things were still hard, before the big contracts started rolling in. Before he became the man he was now. Marcus sat on the bed holding the letter and finally let himself cry. He cried for the man he used to be, the kid from Detroit, who worked 3 jobs and dreamed of building something real. He cried for Elena, the woman who had loved that man and watched him disappear. He cried for himself, for the hollow, empty shell he had become so obsessed with success that he had destroyed everything that actually mattered. His phone rang. Viktor Krasnov again. Marcus wiped his face and answered. "Mr. Johnson." Krasnov said, "I hope you've had time to reflect on your situation. What do you want?" "A meeting, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. My office is on Peachtree Street, 34th floor. I suggest you bring whatever attorney is willing to represent you. And if I don't come, then we proceed to the criminal phase without any attempt at civil resolution. The choice is yours." Marcus thought about it. What choice did he really have? I'll be there. Excellent. Oh, and Mr. Johnson, Elena asked me to tell you something. What? She said she hopes you find peace, that despite everything she doesn't hate you. She just feels sorry for you. The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone for a long moment. She felt sorry for him. The woman he had humiliated, betrayed, and discarded felt sorry for him. That somehow hurt more than losing everything else combined. He finished packing his suitcase, took one last look around the penthouse that had never really been his, and walked out the door. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into purgatory. Jerome was still at his post when Marcus walked through the lobby. "Goodbye, Mr. Johnson," Jerome said quietly. Marcus stopped. He turned to look at the doorman. Really look at him, maybe for the first time. "Jerome, I never asked you. Do you have a family?" Jerome blinked, surprised by the question. "Yes, sir. A wife and 2 daughters. Twins. They're 7. "What are their names?" "Grace and Hope, sir." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's beautiful. Grace and Hope." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He had $100 in cash, old emergency money. He held it out to Jerome. "Take this. Buy them something nice. Tell them," his voice caught, "tell them to never let anyone make them feel like they're not enough." Jerome took the money, his expression softening. "Thank you, sir. And Mr. Johnson. For what it's worth, I always thought Mrs. Johnson was a kind woman. She used to bring me coffee on cold nights, never once looked at me like I was beneath her." Marcus felt the words like a knife. "No," he said quietly. She never did. He walked out into the night. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the city lights in shimmering pools. He didn't have a car. He didn't have money for a taxi. His accounts were frozen. So, Marcus Johnson, former CEO of Johnson Property Group, started walking. It was 9 miles to Deshawn's house. He had plenty of time to think. 3 hours later, Marcus stood on Deshawn's porch, his feet blistered and bleeding, his suitcase wheels broken from dragging it over cracked sidewalks and uneven pavement. The porch light was on, just as Deshawn had promised. The door opened before Marcus could knock. Deshawn stood there, older than Marcus remembered, with a small belly and graying temples. Behind him, the sounds of a family. Children's laughter, a television playing, the clatter of dishes being washed, spilled out into the night. "You walked?" Deshawn asked, taking in Marcus's appearance. "Didn't have much choice." Deshawn shook his head slowly, then stepped aside. "Come in, Marcus. We've got a lot to talk about." Marcus crossed the threshold into his old friend's modest home, a home filled with warmth and noise and love, and realized that this was what real wealth looked like. He had been chasing the wrong thing his entire life, and now it was too late to get it back. Deshawn's couch was lumpy and too short for Marcus's 6-foot frame, but it was the best sleep he'd had in years. No racing thoughts about market projections. No anxiety about impressing investors. Just exhaustion, deep and complete, pulling him under like a tide. He woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of children's voices. "Mommy, who's that man on our couch?" "That's your Uncle Marcus, baby. He's going through a hard time." "Is he sick?" "Something like that." Marcus sat up slowly, his body aching from the 9-mile walk. Deshawn's wife, Keisha, stood in the kitchen doorway watching him with an expression that was hard to read. "Good morning," Marcus said, his voice rough. "Morning. Coffee's on the counter. Deshawn left for work already, but he said to tell you there's a suit in the closet you can borrow, for your meeting." Marcus had almost forgotten. 10 o'clock, Viktor Krasnov's office. "Thank you, Keisha, for letting me stay. I know we haven't—" "Don't." She held up a hand. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Deshawn. That man has a heart too big for his own good, and he still considers you his brother, God knows why." She turned back to the kitchen. "Breakfast is in 15 minutes. Don't be late. And Marcus? Whatever you did to that woman, your wife, I saw the video. The whole country saw the video. You better pray God has more mercy than I would." Marcus sat alone for a moment, letting her words settle. He showered quickly, dressed in Deshawn's borrowed suit, slightly too big in the shoulders, slightly too short in the sleeves, and sat down at the kitchen table with Keisha and the twins, Grace and Hope. The girls were identical, with bright eyes and matching pink barrettes. They stared at Marcus with unfiltered curiosity while they ate their scrambled eggs. "Uncle Marcus, are you famous?" Grace asked. "Why would you think that?" "Because Mommy was watching a video of you on her phone last night. You were yelling at someone in a big room." Keisha shot Marcus a look. "Finish your breakfast, girls." "Was that your wife?" Hope asked, ignoring her mother. "The pretty lady who was crying." Marcus set down his fork. "Yes, that was my wife." "She looked sad." "Did you make her sad?" "Hope that's enough." But Marcus held up a hand. "No, it's okay." He looked at the little girl, 7 years old, innocent, asking the question that no adult had the courage to ask directly. "Yes," he said quietly. "I made her very sad. I made a lot of mistakes, and I hurt her." "Are you going to say sorry?" Marcus thought about it, really thought about it. "I don't know if sorry is enough anymore." Hope considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice weighing a constitutional matter. "My teacher says it's never too late to be kind," she said finally. "Even if someone is mad at you, you can still be kind, and maybe they'll stop being mad someday." Keisha's expression softened slightly. "That's right, baby. Now finish your eggs. School bus is coming in 10 minutes. After the girls left, Keisha poured Marcus another cup of coffee and sat across from him. "Those girls don't know what you did," she said. "They just see a sad man on their couch. But I know. I read the articles. I watched the videos. Deshawn told me stories from your college days about how you used to be." How I used to be? Decent, humble, hungry but not greedy. There's a difference, you know. Hungry means you want to build something. Greedy means you want to take everything and leave nothing for anyone else. Marcus wrapped his hands around the coffee mug. "When did I change? I don't know. That's something you need to figure out for yourself. But I'll tell you what I told Deshawn last night. If you're going to stay under this roof, you better be working on becoming a better man. Not a richer man. A better one." Marcus nodded slowly. "I don't know how to do that." "Then maybe it's time you learned." Viktor Krasnov's office was on the 34th floor of a glass tower on Peachtree Street. Marcus took the elevator up his borrowed suit, hanging awkwardly on his frame, his stomach churning with anxiety. He had no lawyer. Every attorney he'd called that morning had declined to take his case. Word had spread fast in Atlanta's legal community. Marcus Johnson was toxic, and the Volkov family was not to be crossed. The elevator doors opened onto a reception area that screamed old money. Leather chairs, original artwork, a receptionist who looked like she had been specifically hired to make visitors feel inadequate. "Mr. Johnson." She didn't smile. "They're expecting you. Conference room at the end of the hall." They, plural. Marcus walked down the hall, his footsteps muffled by thick carpet. He paused outside the conference room door, took a breath, and pushed it open. Viktor Krasnov sat at the head of a long mahogany table. Beside him was another attorney. Marcus didn't recognize a sharp-faced woman with red hair and the eyes of a hawk. And at the far end of the table, her hands folded in front of her, sat Elena. Marcus's heart stopped. She looked different. Not physically, she was still the same woman he had married 8 years ago. But something in her had changed. The hunched shoulders were gone. The downcast eyes were gone. She sat straight, calm, radiating a quiet power that Marcus had never seen before. Or maybe it had always been there, and he had simply refused to see it. "Mr. Johnson." Viktor gestured to a chair. "Please sit. I see you weren't able to secure representation." Word travels fast. It does in this town. This is my colleague Sandra Kovacs. She specializes in criminal defense. I thought she might be useful for what we're about to discuss. Criminal defense. The word sent ice through Marcus's veins. He sat down across from Elena, but she didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on some point in the middle distance. "Let's not waste time," Viktor said, opening a folder. "Mr. Johnson, you are in a significant amount of trouble. The perjury charge alone could result in 5 to 10 years. Add in the tax fraud we've uncovered. You've been underreporting income for at least 3 years, and we're looking at federal charges on top of state charges." Sandra Kovacs leaned forward. "Our forensic accountants have been very thorough, Mr. Johnson. We found the payments to your girlfriend's apartment. We found the unreported cash withdrawals. We found the donations to certain political campaigns that were structured specifically to avoid disclosure requirements." Marcus felt the walls closing in. "What do you want?" Viktor smiled thinly. "A confession. Full accountability. You will sign over all remaining assets to the Kensington Trust. You will issue a public statement acknowledging Elena's contributions to the company she funded. And you will plead guilty to the perjury charges." "Guilty, I'll go to prison." "Yes. Probably 3 to 5 years with good behavior. But here's the alternative." Viktor closed the folder. "We pursue every charge to the fullest extent. We involve the FBI in the tax investigation. We make sure every media outlet in the country knows exactly what kind of man you are. By the time we're done, your name will be synonymous with fraud and betrayal, and you'll spend the next 15 to 20 years in federal prison." Marcus's hands were shaking. "Why would I take that deal? Either way I go to prison." "Because one way you come out with a chance to rebuild. The other way you come out as a 60-year-old man with nothing and no one." The room was silent. Marcus looked at Elena. Finally, she met his eyes. "Elena, please. You can stop this. You can tell them to back off." She didn't respond. Elena, I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But this destroying me completely, is this really what you want? After everything we shared. Elena tilted her head slightly. What did we share, Marcus? 8 years of marriage, building the company together, the late nights, the early mornings. Remember when we couldn't afford to heat the office, so we worked in our coats? Remember when you drove the delivery van because we couldn't afford a second driver? I remember. Then how can you do this to me? Elena stood up. She walked around the table, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor until she was standing directly in front of Marcus. Do you remember our 5th anniversary? Marcus frowned. What about it? We were supposed to go to dinner. You made reservations at that French restaurant I loved, but you canceled at the last minute because you had a meeting with investors. That meeting was important. That was the deal that... I sat at home alone that night, Marcus. Alone in our penthouse, in a dress I had bought specifically for our anniversary, waiting for you to come home. You came home at midnight drunk and told me that I needed to understand that the business had to come first. Marcus said nothing. Do you remember what you said when I started crying? You said I was being emotional, that I was distracting you from what really mattered. Elena, what about our 6th anniversary or our 7th? Do you even remember what we did? He didn't. He couldn't remember a single one. I'll tell you what we did for our 7th anniversary, Elena said. Nothing. You forgot entirely. When I reminded you, you laughed and said we could celebrate later. We never did. She returned to her seat, her composure intact, but her eyes glistening. I'm not destroying you, Marcus. You destroyed yourself. You destroyed us. I'm just letting the consequences catch up with you. Victor cleared his throat. We need an answer, Mr. Johnson. The offer is on the table. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Marcus stood up on unsteady legs. I need to think. You have until 9 o'clock tomorrow. After that, we proceed with the full charges. Marcus walked to the door, then stopped. Elena, can I ask you one question? She waited. Did you ever love me? Really love me? Or was I always just some kind of experiment? The poor boy you could play house with? Elena's face softened with something that looked like genuine sadness. I loved you more than I've ever loved anyone, Marcus. That's why I gave up everything for you. My family, my fortune, my name. I wanted to be your partner, not your patron. I wanted to build something real with you. Her voice broke slightly. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that I was a person. You started treating me like furniture, like decoration, like something you owned instead of someone who chose to love you. She wiped her eyes quickly. So yes, I loved you. And that's exactly why this hurts so much. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move, unable to speak. Goodbye, Marcus. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. He walked out of the building in a daze. The sun was high and bright, a stark contrast to the storm that had soaked him the day before. People moved past him on the sidewalk. Businessmen, tourists, mothers with strollers, all of them living their normal lives, unaware that Marcus Johnson's world had just collapsed for the second time in 2 days. He found a bench and sat down heavily. 3 to 5 years, with good behavior, or 15 to 20 fighting a battle he couldn't win. His phone buzzed, a text from Deshawn. How did it go? Marcus stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. I need to make a decision by tomorrow. Can we talk tonight? Of course. I'll pick up some beer. Marcus pocketed his phone and sat on the bench, watching the city move around him. Cars, buses, people rushing to get somewhere important. He used to be one of them. He used to be the most important person in every room. Now, he was just a man on a bench with a borrowed suit and a broken life. That night, Deshawn's living room became a confession booth. The kids were in bed. Keisha had retreated to the bedroom with pointed courtesy. Deshawn sat in an armchair with a beer, watching his old friend pour out 8 years of marriage into the empty space between them. I didn't even know who she was. Marcus said for the third time. Her own father. One of the richest men in Georgia, and I had no idea. That doesn't make sense, man. Deshaun shook his head. How do you marry someone and not know their family? She told me her parents were dead, that she grew up in a small village in Russia, that she came to America with nothing and worked her way up. I believed her. Did you ever ask questions? Try to verify anything? Marcus looked into his beer bottle. No. Why not? Because it didn't matter to me. I didn't care about her past. I cared about... He stopped. About what? About myself. About what she could do for me. She was beautiful. She adored me. She made me feel like a success even when I wasn't. I didn't need to know anything else. Deshaun was quiet for a moment. Do you hear yourself, Marcus? You're describing a prop, not a wife. I know. You're describing someone you used because she was useful, not someone you loved. I know. Deshaun leaned forward. Then what are you going to do about it? Marcus met his friend's eyes. I'm going to take the deal. The guilty plea. Yes. You'll go to prison, Marcus. I know. But maybe I deserve to. Maybe that's what it takes for me to actually change. Not just say I've changed, but really do it. Deshaun sat back in his chair. That's the first thing you've said in 2 days that sounds like the Marcus I used to know. What do you mean? The old Marcus, the kid I knew in college, he would have owned his mistakes. He would have taken responsibility. He would have done the hard thing because it was right, not because it was easy. Marcus thought about that letter he had found in Elena's closet, the one he had written years ago promising to be better. I made a lot of promises I didn't keep. Then start keeping them now. Marcus nodded slowly. Deshaun, if I go to prison, will you visit me? Man, you know I will. Even after everything. After I abandoned you for years, after I thought I was too good for you. Deshaun smiled sadly. That's what brothers do, Marcus. Real brothers. Not business partners. Not networking contacts. Brothers. Marcus felt tears threaten again. I don't deserve that. No, you don't. But that's the thing about grace. It's not about deserving. It's about getting what you need, even when you don't deserve it. They sat in silence for a while, two men who had started from the same place and ended up in such different worlds. Deshaun, yeah. I'm going to ask Elena for forgiveness, not because I expect her to give it, but because she deserves to hear it. That's a good start. And then I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make this right. Prison community service, whatever they want. And after, Marcus looked out the window at the dark street beyond. After, I'm going to try to become the man I should have been all along. The man Elena thought she married. The man you used to be friends with. Deshaun raised his beer bottle. To second chances. Marcus raised his. To not wasting them. They drank, and for the first time since the courthouse doors had opened and his world had collapsed, Marcus felt something other than fear and self-pity. He felt hope. Not hope that he would escape consequences. Not hope that everything would magically be okay. But hope that maybe, just maybe, there was still something worth saving inside him, and that was worth more than $62 million. The next morning, Marcus stood outside Viktor Krasnov's building at 8:45. He was wearing the same borrowed suit, now wrinkled from sleeping in it on the bus. He had no briefcase, no assistant, no entourage. Just himself and the decision he had made. At exactly 900, he pushed through the glass doors and took the elevator to the 34th floor. Victor was waiting in the conference room. Sandra Kovacs was there too, and so was Elena, wearing a navy dress that made her look like the princess she had always been. You're early, Victor said, surprised. I didn't want to waste any more of your time than I already have. Marcus set a piece of paper on the table. I wrote this last night. Victor picked it up and read it aloud. I, Marcus Anthony Johnson, hereby confess to committing perjury in open court on the matter of the founding and funding of Johnson Property Group. I knowingly lied about the source of the company's initial capital and deliberately misrepresented my wife's contributions to the business. I take full responsibility for my actions and accept whatever consequences the court deems appropriate." He set the paper down. "This is more than we asked for." "I know." Marcus looked at Elena. "But I'm not done." He walked around the table until he was standing in front of her. Victor and Sandra tensed, but Elena held up a hand to stop them. "What do you want to say, Marcus?" He knelt down. Not like a man proposing, like a man begging. "I'm sorry." 2 words, the simplest words in the English language, and yet they had never been harder to say. "I'm sorry for treating you like you were less than me. I'm sorry for forgetting our anniversaries and missing our dinners and putting the business before our marriage. I'm sorry for humiliating you with Jasmine. I'm sorry for throwing your belongings on the lawn. I'm sorry for telling you that you were nothing without me." His voice cracked. "The truth is, I was nothing without you. Everything I had, everything I built, it was all because of you. And I was too blind, too arrogant, too stupid to see it." Elena's eyes were filling with tears, but she didn't speak. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see who I was. And I'm ashamed." He bowed his head. "Whatever happens next, prison, bankruptcy, whatever, I'm going to try to become someone you would have been proud to marry. Not for you. I know I've lost you forever, but because I need to know that I'm capable of being that man, that I haven't completely destroyed the person I was meant to be." The room was silent. Then softly, Elena spoke. "Stand up, Marcus." He rose slowly. She reached out and touched his face, the first time she had touched him since the day he threw her out of the penthouse. "I don't know if I can forgive you. Not today. Maybe not ever. The things you did, the things you said, they left scars that might never heal." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "But I want you to know something. I'm not doing this to destroy you. I'm doing this because I loved you enough to believe you could be better. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop protecting them from the consequences of their actions." She dropped her hand. "Go to prison, Marcus. Serve your time. Think about who you want to be. And when you come out, if you really have changed, maybe we can have a conversation. Not as husband and wife. That's over. But maybe as 2 people who once meant something to each other." Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded. Victor cleared his throat. "Well, that was unexpected." He pulled out a stack of documents. "Mr. Johnson, if you'll sign here, we can begin the process." Marcus sat down and picked up the pen. 3 to 5 years, with good behavior. It was the longest sentence of his life. And the first step toward becoming someone new. The sentencing hearing was held 3 weeks later in the same courtroom where Marcus's world had first collapsed. Judge Weathers presided again, her face unreadable as she reviewed the plea agreement. Marcus stood at the defendant's table this time with a public defender beside him, a young woman named Patricia Chen, who had taken his case pro bono after reading about it in the newspapers. She believed in redemption, she had told him. She believed people could change. Marcus hoped she was right. The gallery was packed. Reporters filled the back rows, their phones ready to capture every moment. A few of Marcus's former business associates had come, though whether out of support or morbid curiosity, he couldn't tell. Deshaun sat in the front row, wearing his best suit. Keisha was beside him, her expression still guarded, but softer than it had been 3 weeks ago. The twins had made Marcus a card before he left their house that morning. It said, "Good luck, Uncle Marcus," in crayon with drawings of flowers and sunshine. He had it folded in his pocket. Elena was there too, sitting on the opposite side of the aisle with her father. Dmitry Volkov looked exactly as he had that first day, powerful, controlled, radiating an authority that needed no announcement. But his hand rested on his daughter's shoulder in a gesture of pure paternal protection. Viktor Krasnov sat behind them, his expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Johnson," Judge Weathers began, "you have pleaded guilty to 1 count of perjury and 1 count of tax fraud. Before I deliver my sentence, do you have anything you wish to say to the court? Patricia nudged him gently. They had discussed this moment. She had advised him to keep it brief, to express remorse, to avoid making excuses. Marcus stood. Your Honor, I could stand here and tell you about my childhood. I could tell you about growing up poor, about working 3 jobs, about clawing my way up from nothing. And all of that would be true. He paused, gathering himself. But none of it excuses what I did. I lied under oath. I committed fraud. I betrayed the woman who loved me and supported me when I had nothing. I treated her like she was disposable, like her contributions didn't matter, like I was the only one who deserved credit for our success. He looked at Elena. The truth is, I was so busy building an empire that I forgot to be a decent human being. I was so obsessed with being seen as successful that I became someone I don't even recognize anymore. His voice wavered. I'm not asking for leniency, Your Honor. I'm asking for the chance to serve my time and come out a different man. Not a richer man. Not a more powerful man. Just a better one. He sat down. Judge Weathers studied him for a long moment. Mr. Johnson, I have been on this bench for 22 years. I have seen countless men stand where you're standing, promising to change, promising to be better. Most of them are back in my courtroom within 5 years. Marcus's heart sank. But I have also seen on rare occasions a man who truly understands what he has done. A man whose remorse goes deeper than the fear of punishment. A man who is ready to do the hard work of genuine transformation. She removed her glasses and cleaned them slowly. I don't know which kind of man you are, Mr. Johnson. Only time will tell. But I am going to give you the opportunity to prove it. She put her glasses back on. On the count of perjury, I sentence you to 3 years in federal prison. On the count of tax fraud, I sentence you to 2 years to be served concurrently. With good behavior, you may be eligible for parole in 18 months. 18 months. It could have been so much worse. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution to the Volkov Family Trust for any assets improperly obtained during your marriage. You are also ordered to complete 500 hours of community service upon your release, specifically working with at-risk youth in underserved communities. She banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. Mr. Johnson, you will be remanded to custody immediately. 2 federal marshals approached. One of them held handcuffs. This was it. The moment Marcus had been dreading and in some strange way waiting for. The moment his old life officially ended, and whatever came next began. Can I have 1 minute? Marcus asked. Please, just to say goodbye. The marshals exchanged a look, then nodded. Marcus turned to Deshawn, who had risen from his seat and was walking toward the barrier. Thank you, Marcus said, his voice thick. For everything. For the couch, for the beer, for not giving up on me when I gave up on myself. Deshawn reached over the barrier and pulled Marcus into a hug. You're my brother, man. That doesn't change because you made mistakes. Just don't waste this chance. Okay? Come out better than you went in. I will. I promise. I'll bring the girls to visit. They've been asking about you every day. Marcus laughed despite himself. Tell them I said to keep being kind. The world needs more people like them. Keisha approached next. She didn't hug him, but she took his hand and squeezed it. Prove me wrong, Marcus. I want to be wrong about you. I'm going to try. He turned and looked across the aisle. Elena was still seated, her father's hand on her shoulder. She met his eyes but didn't move. Marcus understood. He didn't deserve a goodbye. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But then slowly, Elena stood. She said something to her father, who frowned but nodded. She walked toward Marcus, stopping a few feet away. Elena, don't. She held up a hand. I didn't come over here to hear more apologies. I came to give you something. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, worn photograph. Marcus recognized it immediately. It was from their wedding day. Elena in her simple white dress. Marcus grinning like he had won the lottery. They looked so young, so hopeful, so full of possibility. I found this when I was packing up the penthouse, Elena said. I almost threw it away. But then I thought maybe you should have it, to remind you of who you used to be, who you could be again." Marcus took the photograph with trembling hands. "Elena, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just do better. That's all I want. Not for me. For whoever comes into your life next. Don't do to them what you did to me." "I won't. I swear to God I won't." She nodded once, then turned and walked back to her father. The marshal stepped forward. "Time to go, Mr. Johnson." Marcus held out his wrists. The cold metal of the handcuffs clicked into place. As they led him toward the side door, he took one last look at the courtroom. At Deshawn and Keisha, standing together with their arms around each other. At the reporters already typing furiously on their phones. At Elena and her father watching him go with expressions he couldn't quite read. Then the door closed behind him, and Marcus Johnson, former CEO, former millionaire, former master of his own destiny, began the long walk toward whatever redemption might await him. Federal Correctional Institution. Jessup, Georgia, was nothing like the movies. There were no dramatic confrontations in the yard, no dangerous inmates waiting to test the new arrival. It was just boring. Crushingly, endlessly boring. Marcus was assigned to a minimum security unit thanks to the non-violent nature of his crimes. His cellmate was a former accountant named Howard, who had embezzled money from his church. Howard snored like a freight train and talked constantly about his stamp collection. The first few weeks were the hardest. Marcus had never been alone with his thoughts before, not really. There had always been meetings, phone calls, emails, deals to close, and fires to put out. Now there was nothing but time. He thought about Elena constantly, about all the small moments he had missed because he was too busy chasing the next big thing. The way she hummed while she cooked, the way she left little notes in his briefcase, the way she always waited up for him no matter how late he came home. He had taken all of it for granted, every single bit of it. "You're doing it again," Howard said one night about a month into Marcus's sentence. "Doing what?" "Staring at that photograph like it's going to come to life and forgive you." Marcus looked down at the wedding photo in his hands. He had looked at it so many times that the edges were starting to fray. "She's not going to forgive me, Howard." "Maybe not. But that doesn't mean you stop trying to deserve forgiveness." Marcus set the photograph on his bunk. "You sound like a fortune cookie." "I'm an embezzler, not a philosopher. But I've been in here for 4 years and I've learned a thing or two." Howard sat up suddenly serious. "The guys who make it out of here and actually change. They're not the ones who spend all their time feeling sorry for themselves. They're the ones who figure out what they're going to do differently." "What do you mean?" "I mean, what are you going to build when you get out of here? Not another company, not another empire. What kind of life are you going to build? What kind of man are you going to be?" Marcus didn't have an answer. "Think about it," Howard said. "You've got 18 months. That's a lot of time to figure it out." He rolled over and started snoring within minutes. But Marcus stayed awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Howard's question. What kind of man was he going to be? The answer came slowly over months of reflection and routine. Marcus started attending the prison's educational programs. Not because he needed a GED or job training, but because they gave him something to do with his mind. He took classes in financial literacy, helping other inmates understand how to manage money when they got out. He discovered he was good at teaching, really good at it. For the first time in his life, he was using his business knowledge to help people instead of exploit them. He started writing letters. Long, rambling letters to Deshawn updating him on prison life and asking about the twins. Shorter letters to Keisha, thanking her for her honesty and promising to prove her wrong. He even wrote to Jerome the doorman at the penthouse, apologizing for never seeing him as a person. He didn't write to Elena. Not yet. He wasn't ready. He didn't know if he would ever be ready. 6 months in, Deshawn came to visit with the twins. The visiting room was a large open space, filled with plastic chairs and vending machines. Marcus sat at a table wearing his khaki prison uniform. his hands folded in front of him. Grace and Hope ran to him as soon as they saw him. "Uncle Marcus!" He hugged them tightly, breathing in the smell of children's shampoo and innocence. They had grown so much in just 6 months. "Hey, Munchkins, you've gotten so big." "Daddy says you're in timeout," Hope said solemnly. "The longest timeout ever," Marcus laughed. "That's one way to put it." "Are you being good? If you're good, you get to come out sooner." "I'm trying to be good. I'm trying really hard." Deshawn approached and pulled Marcus into a hug. "You look different, man." "Different how?" "I don't know. Calmer. More like yourself." They sat down at the table. The twins immediately started exploring the vending machines, fascinated by the novelty. "How are you really doing?" Deshawn asked. "Honestly, better than I expected. The first few weeks were rough, but I've been keeping busy, teaching some classes, reading a lot, thinking even more." "Thinking about what?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "About who I want to be. About what actually matters. About all the things I got wrong." Deshawn nodded. "And what have you figured out?" "That I spent my whole life chasing things that didn't matter. Money, status, power. I thought if I had enough of those things, I would finally feel like I was enough, like I had made it." He shook his head. "But the truth is, I already had everything I needed. I had a wife who loved me. I had a best friend who believed in me. I had a chance to build something real, and I threw it all away because I was too busy trying to impress people who didn't even care about me." Deshawn leaned back in his chair. "That's some serious growth, Marcus." "Yeah, well, prison gives you a lot of time to grow." "What are you going to do when you get out?" Marcus had thought about this question constantly. He had run through 1,000 scenarios, 1,000 possibilities. "I want to help people," he said finally. "Kids specifically. Kids who grew up like I did, poor, hungry, desperate to prove themselves. I want to teach them that success isn't about how much money you have or how big your office is. It's about who you are and how you treat people." "That sounds like a nonprofit." "Maybe. I don't know the details yet, but I know I can't go back to my old life. I can't be that person again." Grace ran over with a bag of chips. "Uncle Marcus, can you open this?" "It's too hard." Marcus took the bag and tore it open easily. "There you go, sweetheart." She beamed at him and ran back to her sister. "They ask about you all the time," Deshawn said. "Every night before bed they want to know if Uncle Marcus is okay." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not, but that's not really the point, is it?" 8 months in, Marcus received an unexpected letter. The return address said Volkov Holdings International. His hands trembled as he opened it. "Mr. Johnson, I am writing to inform you that the Volkov family has decided to establish a scholarship fund for at-risk youth in the Atlanta area. The fund will provide educational opportunities and mentorship to young people from underserved communities. Elena has requested that you be informed of this initiative, as it was inspired in part by conversations she had with your friend Deshawn Williams about your plans for the future. Should you wish to be involved in this program upon your release, please contact my office to discuss potential opportunities. Sincerely, Viktor Krasnov." Marcus read the letter 3 times. Elena had created a scholarship fund, inspired by his plans. She had reached out to Deshawn. She was watching. She was listening. She hadn't forgiven him, but she hadn't given up on him either. That night, for the first time since entering prison, Marcus allowed himself to feel something other than guilt and regret. He felt hope. The months crawled by. Marcus continued teaching, continued learning, continued thinking about the man he wanted to become. He read books on psychology, on leadership, on personal development. He wrote in a journal every night, processing his thoughts and tracking his progress. He also started attending group therapy sessions, something he would have scoffed at in his former life. But sitting in a circle with other men who had made terrible choices and were trying to do better, there was something powerful about that, something healing. "I used to think I was better than everyone," Marcus said during one session. "Smarter, harder working, more deserving. I looked at people who hadn't achieved what I had, and I thought it was because they weren't trying hard enough. And now, the therapist asked, now I know that success isn't just about hard work. It's about luck. It's about opportunities. It's about the people who believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. He thought about Elena investing millions in his company without ever telling him. I had people like that in my life. I just refused to see them. At the 12-month mark, Marcus was eligible for early parole consideration. His behavior had been exemplary. He had completed multiple educational programs. He had letters of recommendation from the prison chaplain, the education coordinator, and even the warden. The parole board reviewed his case on a Tuesday morning in September. Marcus sat before them in his khaki uniform, his hands steady, his heart pounding. Mr. Johnson, the board chairman said, you've made significant progress during your incarceration. Your teaching work has been noted. Your participation in therapy has been exemplary. Your disciplinary record is spotless. Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. However, we have some concerns. Your crimes were serious. You lied under oath. You defrauded the tax system. You betrayed your wife's trust in spectacular fashion. The chairman leaned forward. What makes you think you won't fall back into old patterns when you're released? Marcus took a deep breath. Because I finally understand what those old patterns cost me. Not the money, not the company. Those things never mattered as much as I thought they did. He paused, choosing his words carefully. What I lost was the respect of people who actually cared about me. My wife, my best friend, my own sense of who I was and what I stood for. I traded all of that for a lifestyle that was built on lies and borrowed money. He looked the chairman in the eye. I can't get back what I lost. My marriage is over. My reputation is destroyed. But I can make sure that I never make those choices again. I can use what I've learned to help other people avoid the same mistakes. And how do you plan to do that? There's a scholarship fund being established for at-risk youth in Atlanta. I've been invited to be involved. I want to mentor young people from backgrounds like mine, kids who are hungry and ambitious and desperate to succeed. I want to teach them that success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become. The board members exchanged glances. We'll take a brief recess to deliberate. They were gone for 20 minutes. Marcus sat in the empty room, staring at the wall, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The door opened. The board filed back in. Mr. Johnson, after careful consideration, we have decided to grant your parole. Marcus exhaled. You will be released in 2 weeks. You will be required to complete 500 hours of community service as specified in your original sentence. You will meet with a parole officer weekly. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate return to custody. I understand. Mr. Johnson, you've been given a second chance. Don't waste it. I won't, I promise. 2 weeks later, Marcus walked out of Federal Correctional Institution Jessup carrying a small bag of personal belongings and wearing the same borrowed suit he had been arrested in 18 months ago. Deshawn was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his Honda Civic. Need a ride? Marcus smiled, a real smile, the first one in what felt like forever. Yeah, I think I do. He climbed into the passenger seat. The car smelled like coffee and the twins' apple juice boxes. Where to? Deshawn asked. Marcus thought about it. He had no home to go to, no penthouse, no corner office, no empire, but he had something better. Take me to your place, he said. I want to see Grace and Hope. I want to thank Keisha, and then I want to start figuring out what the rest of my life is going to look like. Deshawn started the car. Sounds like a plan. As they pulled out of the prison parking lot, Marcus looked back one last time at the place that had held him for 18 months. Then he turned forward toward whatever came next. The first week of freedom was overwhelming. Every sound seemed too loud. Every space seemed too open. Marcus would wake up at 5 a.m. conditioned by 18 months of prison routine and lie in the darkness of Deshawn's guest room, listening to the unfamiliar silence of a house that wasn't surrounded by razor wire. Grace and Hope treated him like a returning hero. They made him a "Welcome Home Uncle Marcus" banner with glitter and construction paper. They demanded he read them bedtime stories every night. They asked 1,000 questions about prison that Keisha desperately tried to redirect. Did you have to wear orange pajamas? Were there bad guys? Did you make any friends? Marcus answered honestly in ways they could understand. I wore khaki clothes like what your daddy wears to work sometimes. There were people who made mistakes just like I did. And yes, I made some friends. People who were trying to be better just like me. On his third day out, Marcus went to his parole officer's office for the first scheduled check-in. The officer, a tired-looking woman named Denise Washington, reviewed his file with a skeptical expression. Johnson Property Group, $62 million, perjury and fraud. She looked up. You fell pretty far. Yes, ma'am. Most guys with your background don't make it. They get out, they can't handle being nobody after being somebody. They violate parole within 6 months, end up back inside. Marcus nodded. I don't plan to be most guys. They all say that. I know. But I have something most of them don't. What's that? People who are watching. People who are waiting to see if I actually change. I can't let them down. Denise studied him for a long moment. Your community service assignment. 500 hours with at-risk youth. There's a program downtown called Second Chance Atlanta. They work with kids from rough neighborhoods, help them stay in school, teach them life skills. You start Monday. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Those kids will eat you alive if you come in there with any of that corporate CEO attitude. They can smell fake from a mile away. Marcus smiled slightly. I don't have any attitude left. Prison knocked it all out of me. We'll see. Second Chance. Atlanta operated out of a converted warehouse in a neighborhood Marcus would have avoided in his former life. The streets were cracked. The buildings were worn. The kids who gathered there after school were exactly the kind of hungry, desperate, brilliant young people Marcus had once been. And they hated him on sight. You're the dude from TV, a 17-year-old named Jamal said on Marcus's first day. The one who lied about his wife and stole all that money. That's me. So what they sent you here as punishment, make the rich criminal babysit the poor kids. Something like that. Jamal laughed, but there was no humor in it. Man, you don't know nothing about us. You had a penthouse. You had fancy cars. What are you going to teach us? How to commit fraud? Marcus could feel the other kids watching, waiting to see how he would react. You're right, he said. I don't know what your life is like. I had money. I had success. And I threw it all away because I was too arrogant to appreciate what I had. He sat down on one of the worn couches. But I do know what it's like to grow up hungry. I know what it's like to work 3 jobs and still not have enough. I know what it's like to want something so bad you can taste it, and to be willing to do anything to get it. Jamal crossed his arms. So I also know what happens when anything turns into everything. When you forget who you are. When you step on people to get ahead. When you treat the people who love you like they're obstacles instead of partners. He looked around at the faces watching him. I'm not here to lecture you. I'm not here to pretend I have all the answers. I'm here because I made terrible choices, and this is part of my punishment. But maybe I can share what I learned so you don't have to learn it the same way I did. The room was quiet. What did you learn? A girl named Destiny asked. She was 15 with sharp eyes and a guarded expression. Marcus thought about it. I learned that success isn't about how much money you have. It's about who you are when no one is watching. It's about how you treat people who can't do anything for you. It's about building something that lasts, not just something that looks good. He paused. And I learned that the people who really love you, they don't care about your money or your title or your fancy car. They care about you, the real you. And if you're too busy being someone else to let them see the real you, you're going to end up alone. Jamal was still standing with his arms crossed, but something in his expression had softened. That's a lot of talk, man. How do we know you're for real? You don't. Not yet, but I'll be here every day for the next 500 hours. You'll have plenty of time to figure it out. The months that followed were the hardest work Marcus had ever done. Harder than building a company. Harder than surviving prison. Because this work required something he had never been good at: genuine human connection. He learned the kids' names, their stories, their dreams. Jamal wanted to be an engineer, but was failing math because he had to work nights to help his mom pay rent. Destiny was a gifted writer, but had been told her whole life that girls from her neighborhood didn't go to college. A quiet kid named Marcus Jr. The coincidence wasn't lost on anyone, had a mind for business, but no role models who could show him how to channel it legally. Marcus tutored them. He helped them with job applications and college essays. He shared his failures as openly as his successes. You see this? He held up his fake Rolex, which he still carried in his pocket. This watch cost $200. For 8 years, I told everyone it was worth $40,000. I lied about a watch. And that wasn't even my biggest lie. The kids laughed, but they also listened. The thing about lies is they always catch up with you. Always. Maybe not today. Maybe not next year. But eventually the truth comes out. And when it does, you don't just lose the thing you lied about. You lose everything. 3 months into his community service, Marcus got a call from Viktor Krasnov. Mr. Johnson, I hope I'm not interrupting. Marcus was sitting in the Second Chance Atlanta warehouse, eating lunch with a group of kids. Not at all. What can I do for you? The Volkov Family Scholarship Fund is launching next month. We're having a small ceremony to announce the first round of recipients. Elena has requested your presence. Marcus nearly dropped his phone. Elena wants me there. She believes it would be meaningful for the recipients to hear from someone who has experienced both success and failure. Someone who understands the importance of second chances. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I'll be there. Excellent. I'll send you the details. The ceremony was held at the Atlanta Community Center, a modest venue compared to the galas Marcus had attended in his former life. There were no ice sculptures or champagne fountains, just rows of folding chairs and a simple stage with a podium. Marcus arrived early, wearing a new suit that Deshawn had helped him pick out. Not designer, not flashy, just clean and respectable. He sat in the back row watching as the room filled with families and community members. The scholarship recipients, 10 young people from underserved neighborhoods, sat in the front, their faces a mix of excitement and disbelief. Then Elena walked in. Marcus's breath caught. She was wearing a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back, her face free of makeup. She looked exactly like the woman he had fallen in love with 12 years ago, in that small diner where she worked, before the penthouse, before the lies, before everything fell apart. She saw him immediately. Their eyes met across the room. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. The ceremony began. Viktor Krasnov gave a brief introduction about the fund's mission. Dmitry Volkov spoke about the importance of investing in young people. Then Elena took the podium. When I was young, she began, I had everything: money, privilege, opportunity, but I felt empty. I felt like my life had been decided for me, that I would never know if people valued me for who I was or for what I had. She paused. So I walked away. I gave up my name, my inheritance, my family. I wanted to find out who I really was away from all of that. Her eyes found Marcus again. I thought I found it. I married a man I believed in. I invested everything I had, not just money, but love, hope, faith, into building a life with him. For 8 years, I thought we were partners. Her voice wavered slightly. I was wrong, and when the truth came out, I was devastated. I wanted to destroy him. I wanted him to feel even a fraction of the pain I felt. The room was completely silent. But revenge doesn't heal anything. It just creates more pain. So instead, I decided to build something that would help young people who are hungry and ambitious and desperate to succeed without losing themselves in the process. She gestured to the scholarship recipients. These 10 young people represent the future I want to see. A future where success is measured not by how much you take, but by how much you give. where ambition is tempered by integrity, where dreams are built on foundations that can't be shaken. She took a breath. And I want to introduce someone who taught me that lesson in the hardest possible way. Someone who lost everything, including me, because he forgot what really matters. Someone who is trying every single day to become a better man. She looked directly at Marcus. "Marcus, would you please come up here?" Marcus's heart was pounding. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't prepared anything. But he stood up and walked to the stage. Elena stepped aside, making room for him at the podium. "I don't have a speech," Marcus said, his voice rough. "I didn't know I was going to speak today." He looked out at the audience, the families, the scholarship recipients, the community members who had no reason to believe anything he said. 3 years ago, I stood in a courtroom and told a judge that I had built my company alone, that my wife had contributed nothing, that I was a self-made man. He shook his head. Every word was a lie. The truth is, I was nothing. Less than nothing. My wife Elena, she believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. She invested her own money to save my failing business. She worked beside me, supported me, loved me, and I repaid her by treating her like she was worthless. His voice cracked. I went to prison. I lost everything. And for a long time I thought that was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. He looked at Elena. But it wasn't. The worst thing was realizing what I had thrown away. Not the money, not the company, but her. The woman who saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. He turned back to the audience. You young people sitting in the front row, you have something I never had. You have people who believe in you. You have this scholarship. You have a chance to build something real. He pointed to the Volkov family crest on the banner behind him. Don't waste it like I did. Don't get so focused on success that you forget to be a good person. Don't step on the people who love you to climb a ladder that leads nowhere. He took a breath. Be ambitious. Dream big. Work hard. But remember, at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is who you are and how you treat people. Everything else, the money, the titles, the fancy cars, it can all disappear in an instant. He stepped back from the podium. That's all I have. Thank you for listening. The room was silent for a moment. Then slowly people began to clap. Not the polite obligatory applause of a business conference. Real applause. Genuine. Marcus walked off the stage, his legs shaky. Elena was waiting for him at the bottom of the steps. That was good, she said quietly. I meant every word. I know. That's why it was good. They stood facing each other, 18 months of prison and 2 years of pain between them. Elena, not here. She glanced at the crowd. Walk with me. They slipped out a side door into a small courtyard. The evening air was cool and clean. I've been following your work at Second Chance Atlanta, Elena said. Victor sends me reports. You've been watching me. I had to know if you were really changing or just performing. Marcus nodded. And what did you decide? Elena was quiet for a long moment. I think you're different. I think prison broke something in you, something that needed to be broken. And I think you're slowly putting yourself back together into someone new. I'm trying. I know. She turned to face him fully. I'm not going to lie to you, Marcus. There's a part of me that will never forgive you, a part that will always remember what you did, how you made me feel, how you threw away everything we built. Marcus felt his heart sink. But there's another part of me, Elena continued, that remembers the man I married. The hungry kid from Detroit who wanted to change the world. The man who wrote me love letters and held my hand when we couldn't afford to heat our apartment. Her eyes glistened. That man is still in there somewhere. I saw glimpses of him today. Elena, I don't expect anything from you. I don't deserve anything. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I went to prison, but because I hurt the only person who ever really loved me. Elena reached out and touched his face, the same gesture she had made in Victor's conference room 2 years ago, right before Marcus signed away everything. I know. They stood there in the fading light, two people who had loved each other, destroyed each other, and somehow found their way back to this moment. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now you keep working, keep growing, keep becoming the man you should have been all along." "And us?" Elena smiled sadly. "There is no us, Marcus. Not the way there was before. That's gone. We can never get it back." Marcus nodded, the finality of her words settling into his bones. "But," she continued, "maybe someday, when you've proven that this isn't just an act, when you've shown the world who you really are, maybe we can be something else. Not husband and wife, but two people who made terrible mistakes and found a way to do better. I'd like that." "So would I." She dropped her hand. "Goodbye, Marcus." "Goodbye, Elena." She walked back inside, and Marcus stood alone in the courtyard, watching the first stars appear in the darkening sky. 1 year later, Marcus stood at the podium of Second Chance Atlanta's annual gala. The organization had grown beyond anyone's expectations. They now served over 500 young people with programs in financial literacy, college preparation, and entrepreneurship. Marcus had been hired as the full-time director 6 months ago, his first real job since prison. The salary was modest, the hours were long, and it was the most fulfilling work he had ever done. "Before I introduce tonight's keynote speaker," Marcus said to the crowded room, "I want to share something with you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the fake Rolex. "This watch represents everything I used to value: status, appearance, the ability to make people think I was something I wasn't." He set it on the podium. "Tonight, we're auctioning it off for charity. It's worth about $50 on a good day. But the story behind it? That's priceless." The room laughed. 3 years ago, I was a man who measured success by what I had. Today, I measure success by what I give. And I have Elena Volkov to thank for teaching me that lesson, even though the tuition was my entire former life." He smiled. "Please welcome our keynote speaker, the founder of the Volkov Family Scholarship Fund, Elena Volkov." Elena walked to the stage radiant and confident. As she passed Marcus, she squeezed his hand briefly. "Good speech," she whispered. "I learned from the best." She took the podium, and Marcus stepped back to watch. They would never be husband and wife again. That chapter was closed forever. But they had become something else. Partners in a different kind of venture. Two people who had learned through pain and loss and hard-won wisdom what really mattered. After the gala, Marcus walked outside into the cool night air. Deshawn was waiting for him, leaning against his car. "Hell of a speech in there." "Thanks for coming. Wouldn't miss it. The twins wanted me to give you this." He handed Marcus a card. On the front, in glittery letters, it said, "We're proud of you, Uncle Marcus." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "Tell them I love them." "Tell them yourself. Sunday dinner. Keisha's making her famous mac and cheese." "I'll be there." Deshawn clapped him on the shoulder. "You did it, man. You really did it." "Did what?" "Became the person you were always supposed to be." Marcus looked back at the building where Elena was still inside talking to donors and scholarship recipients. "I had help. A lot of help." "That's the thing about second chances," Deshawn said. "They're not really about what you do alone. They're about the people who believe in you enough to give you another shot." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess they are." He climbed into the passenger seat of Deshawn's Honda, the same car that had picked him up from prison 2 years ago. The same friend who had never given up on him, even when everyone else had. As they drove through the Atlanta night past the gleaming towers where Marcus had once felt like a king, he realized something. He had lost everything he thought he wanted: his company, his penthouse, his money, his wife. But he had found something far more valuable. He had found himself. Marcus Johnson had spent his whole life building an empire only to discover that empires built on lies always crumble. He had treated the woman who loved him like she was worthless, only to learn that she was the most valuable thing he ever had. He had chased success with a desperation that consumed everything in its path, only to realize that real success has nothing to do with money or power or status. Real success is waking up every morning and being proud of the person you see in the mirror. Real success is having people in your life who love you for who you are, not what you have. Real success is knowing that when you fall, you have the strength to get back up and do better. Marcus had fallen farther than most people ever fall, but he had also risen in a way that most people never have the courage to rise. Not to reclaim his fortune or rebuild his empire, but to become finally and completely a man worth loving. And that was worth more than $62 million could ever buy. The car turned onto Deshawn Street, where the porch light was already on, where Grace and Hope were probably waiting by the window, where a family that had chosen to love him was ready to welcome him home. Marcus smiled. Some stories end with the hero getting everything he ever wanted. This one ended with the hero finally understanding what he should have wanted all along.